when at all possible, like, separate the layers. Don't mix them all up. Like, for example, let's talk about Steven Matz, and I alluded to it at the top of the show. He's not Max Scherzer. He's not Marcus Stroman, Robbie Ray, Kevin Gausman. I could mention a couple more. He's not from that upper shelf of starting pitchers. So he's not. I don't think he's would fit anybody's description, Steven Matz, as the pitcher that we wanted, the pitcher that we think the Cardinals need the most, or the pitcher that we ranked first on the wish list. I don't think he would show up in any of those categories. But this is what I mean about layers. That's one layer to it. One layer is what should have the Cardinals done, or what should they do. That's another layer. But when you sign a player, the way I'm wired, right, the first thing I want to do is just evaluate the signing. I don't want to throw all the other stuff in the pot, right? You don't want a pot that's got too much stuff in it. So let's just focus on the thing in front of us. They just signed a pitcher, or these got him to agree to a contract, 4 years, $44 million. So let's stick with that for a while. Let's suss that out, and then we can move to the other layers. You know what I'm saying? Does that make me a hopeless grouch? And if you say yes, I will accept it.
I mean, you're a grouch, but I don't think that's the thing that makes you a grouch, Bernie. Come on now, let's not be too harsh.
Right. I got you, man. So no, anyway, look, I'm disappointed, but hardly surprised and we're going to talk to Derek Gould about this at 4:30. Hardly surprised that the Cardinals did not, as I always like to say, jump into the deep end of the pool. And based on some comments, and we will talk to Derek about this at 4:30, but based on some comments at the recent GM meetings from John Mozeliak, he made it clear they wanted a pitcher. He didn't say pitchers. I'm talking about starters, and guy for the middle part of the rotation or whatever. It's just that's their guy. They got their guy. So I don't, you can't ever rule anything out, and I'm not covering my butt if it's true. There's always at least a possibility of a huge surprise, but I don't see it coming. I do think the Cardinals need more depth with their pitching, and they have a lot more work to do. But if you were looking for a good middle rotation, fourth starter, maybe even fifth starter, depending on the rest of your rotation, I think he fits that need, and I think that he can help the team. And, so I don't have any problem with the signing as a standalone decision. If we want to get into the other stuff, that's cool too. But for now, I'm separating that part. So there's a couple things. And I heard, I was listening to, KFNS today. And again, not to be a nag, but everyone's talking about, well, he's a 14-game winner. He's a 14-game winner. I mean, he's a 14-game winner. How you get a 14-game winner at those prices? And I get that. But this is why individual pitcher wins can be very, very misleading. I mean, that's all I say. I'm not saying they're worthless. I'm not in the Brian Kenny club, but they can be extremely misleading. You be very careful before you attach too much value to the 14 wins because, as I told Rocco earlier today, last year in the American League, in terms of runs scored while the pitcher is actually in the game, the starting pitcher, right? Number one in the American League for run support last year was Steven Matz, the entire American League. They scored like crazy men just about every time he pitched. Of course, and he pitched decently. He pitched solidly. He had a good year. So, of course, he's going to rack up the wins. But it doesn't mean that that's the number one thing you look at. You have to look at the factors behind that. He benefited from incredible run support. Just like when he comes to St. Louis, he should benefit immensely from great defense. Never understood why this is viewed as like Wimbledon singles finals or something, or like, the Masters. It's a team sport. Even the best pitchers need, help from the defense. They need the bullpen to protect their leads. They need their teammates to score plenty of runs so they don't lose 1-0 or lose 2-1. You know what I'm saying? So I don't really care that he got great run support. Good for him. But the 14 wins isn't really indicative of how he pitched. But he pitched fine. And if he's coming to St. Louis, we can expect, I do believe, him to be exactly what they need for the role that they have set out for him. They're not saying he's a number one starter. No, he's not. They didn't say that, though. We know he's not Max Scherzer, but for what they were looking for, and we can take issue with what they're looking for. I got no problem with that. But for what they were looking for, he does fit what they their own wish list, which is not the same wish list as what you and I may have. But anyway, a couple things about him to explain how this defense will be. I think it'll set him up for the best pitching of his career. I really, truly do. Because he's a match for their defense, he's a match for their home ballpark, and he's going to greatly benefit from both of those things. He's got those sinkers. He's going to get a lot of ground balls to that infield, and do you think that that's going to help him? Yeah, I think it's probably going to help him in a major way. He has never, and believe me, you know how I am, painstakingly, Mr. Nerd, research all this stuff because I want to make sure that my assumptions are correct. He's never had a defense behind him that's as excellent as the one he's going to be working with next year. And this is important because he's a guy with a 45.5% ground ball rate last season, and for his career, it's 47%. And let's start with this. In his 5 seasons, I think it was, 5 seasons with the Mets, hitters batted .250 against him on ground balls. You know what the Cardinals... You know the ground ball batting average against Cardinals pitchers has been over the past 3 seasons. It's been .207. Now, do you think that that's because hitters are like placing their when they swing against Matz when he was playing for the Mets and they were trying to hit ground balls that they were placing them perfectly? No, it means that the Mets fielders didn't get to as many ground balls as the Cardinals infielders get to. And that's a big difference. We're talking about a 43-point difference in batting average on ground balls from what he's used to and from what he will now be working with. That's a big deal. And here's this will make some people laugh. Rock, I did this. This one will. I think you'll appreciate this one. From 2015 through 2020 with the Mets. This ground ball pitcher. This is basically what he had to work with, right? They were minus 157 defensive runs saved overall, but talking about the infield, they were minus 163 defensive runs saved in the infield. Translation, brutal. I mean, just absolutely brutal defense. Their outfield was generally decent, which explains why there's a discrepancy between overall runs saved and runs not saved in the infield. But their defense had a yearly ranking of 23rd. An average ranking, I should say, of 23rd, the Mets, among the 30 teams in defensive runs saved. And the Mets' infield defense was basically at the bottom of Major League Baseball during the 5 years that he was there. Now, the Toronto Blue Jays had a better defense, which is why his ERA went down to 3.82, and why people were saying, oh, he's pitching better. Well, from the standpoint that he was pitching better because he had a defense that was actually getting the ground balls, yeah, he did pitch better. But a lot of it was a reflection on the defense because he's not a big strikeout guy at all. He actually fit in pretty well with this group. He's about a 22.5%, 23% strikeout rate guy. So even though the Jays helped him, they did have a plus defense for their infield, but a lot of that was basically attributable to their second baseman, Marcus Semien. So it really wasn't a great infield. There was one great player on the infield defensively. So the home run balls have been a problem for him at time, but again, last year there were a bunch of them, but it was the pandemic-shortened season, 2 years ago, I should say. I don't count that. A lot of people get mulligans for that. He bounced back very nicely for the Blue Jays in 2021. But here's the deal: you have a left-handed pitcher, and how does he fare against right-handed batters? Okay, let's take a look at that real quick. Well, I looked at the career slugging percentage against Matz among right-handed batters, and it's not good. Not good for him. It's pretty high. But I also looked and saw that last year it went down, and it was a little above that, a little higher than you want, but it was okay. It was fine. But again, we have to kind of look at the setting, right? He's going to be making roughly half his starts at Busch Stadium. That'll help him. You know why? Because we all know why. It takes the air out of fly balls. It really suppresses home runs. It suppresses power. And here's the deal. And this is another reason why he was meant to pitch in St. Louis. And whatever there is to get from Steven Matz, if he stays healthy, and he's been healthy for quite a while, this will put him in the maximum position to do well. Not only the infield, but here's the stat. Over the past 5 seasons, so no one can say, well, that's a small sample size. Over the past 5 seasons, right-handed batters, all teams, including the Cardinals, all right-handed batters have a 365 slugging percentage at Busch Stadium. It includes a 362 slugged last year at Busch Stadium. So if Steven Matz last year was kind of on that borderline of like, well, right-handers hit him for power a little bit too much. Look, as much as he pitches at Busch Stadium's going to be his buddy. I mean, Busch Stadium is going to drag that slugging percentage down. I got to believe that. So you look at his innings, and it would be kind of off base to say he's an innings muncher. Now, I don't think he's quite that, but his last 3 full seasons, which basically all that does is exclude the pandemic season. His last 3 full seasons, he's averaged 155 innings a year and just under 30 starts a year. There's nothing wrong with that. And last season, he averaged 5.2 innings per start. And Cardinal starting pitchers, for example, averaged 5.1 innings per start in 2021. And the last 3 full seasons in front of all these bad defenses or lacking defenses, his ERA's been 4. There's nothing wrong with that. You want it to get lower, but I think it will get lower in St. Louis. So, I could go on and on. I hit you with a lot of numbers, but the only way to tell the story of why this is a fit, I have to explain it and break it down. So I hope you at least appreciate that, even if you don't find it the most exciting stuff in the world, which I can understand. So what do you think about it, Rock? I wanted to get you in here. What did you think, and what do you think now? I mean, when I say think now, I don't mean after hearing me talk. I just mean the more you thought about the signing.
Well, I mean, a lot of it's going to be moved by what we said yesterday, which is just taking advantage of the team you have, and I think that sometimes is a missed opportunity. And it's one thing, if you're talking about the Yankees always needing some good left-handed hitting, or the Rockies playing, to the fact that they're going to score more runs. But I mean, you have to build your team with what you have, and if you have an entirely Gold Glove studded infield, and the one guy who isn't, Sosa, was pretty damn good defensively, then you get pitchers who are ground ball pitchers and who have shown that with good defense behind them, their numbers are going to be better. And if you can get that on essentially, I'm not going to say a deal, but if you can get that on a good contract because maybe some of those numbers aren't as glowing for other teams, but they work perfectly into your system, then that's how you do it. It's a winning move when you think about $11 million per year for a potential number 3 starter that fits perfectly into the style of baseball you want to play. I think it's a perfect move. Again, is it fireworks and gold-plated streets? No, it's not. It's an $11 million AAV 4-year deal for a number 3 pitcher. You're not going to get too excited about that. But this is the kind of solid move that makes you, that takes you from 88 wins to 90 to 92 wins. These are the moves you have to make. And again, the fact that it's a move within a strategy and a cohesive team building is something that I personally just like to see.
No, not at all. And that's what you got to look at. You got to look for fit. See, there are certain pitchers, as we know, that transcend fit, so to speak. In other words, if Max Scherzer's Max Scherzer, he fits anywhere. He fits at the top of your rotation. But when you take someone who's down a little bit in the classification, someone who's like, at best probably middle rotation guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. See, I've always gotten that's another one of my grumpy turnoffs. It's like look, I understand that if you have a great number 1 starter, it makes a real big difference. And if your number 2 starter is very, very good, it makes a difference. It really does. It's matchups and all that stuff. But once we get to that, it's like, well, he's a number 5 star. I don't know what number to put on him, and I don't really see why I should have to put a number on him. I mean, we know he's not a number 1. He's almost certainly not a number 2. But if he pitches well, what does it matter? You have to have 5 starters at least to open a season, and you use more during the season. So if you give him the ball on his day and he pitches well, what difference does it make, the number that we're assigning to him? Just pitch well. Don't worry about the number. Oh, he's a number 4. Don't worry about it. If he pitches well, you'll be happy. So, but you made a great point. I mean, this does reflect that the team understands what it is, what they want to do, and they went out and got a starting pitcher. If they weren't willing to go gung-ho for Max or Stroman, they went out and got a starting pitcher that fits the template that they use, the template that they want. And so I have a hard time finding a lot of fault with that. Again, separate issue if we want to argue that could have been or should have been more ambitious. Separate issue.